It's easy to see this broadening trend channel that we have on the S&P that I just showed you. But also notice if we pull up the Qs, the QQQ, you can see a similar trend channel developing, but at least trend line resistance along these declining tops. And essentially that's what you're running into right here. And when you look at this on a weekly chart, there's no way that anybody can say this market is in an uptrend of any kind. You've had a rally off the lows, and we've had a decent start to the new year. But this has been a rally based on hopes of a Fed pivot and also some evidence of a Fed pivot, right, with the CPI data. But today's PPI was light. And what happened? They clocked the market. If we look at the S&P, we can see that while it's running into resistance at the top of the trend channel on the weekly chart, on the daily chart, we just busted the 200-day moving average on about average volume, or a little higher maybe than yesterday. But the key here is you've reversed back through the 200-day moving average. If we look at the NASDAQ, you're also rolling over. And if we look at the Dow Industrials, we can see that you're backing down from a double top position, and you're busting the 10, the 20, and the 50-day moving averages all at once. So these are triggering short sale plays in the inverse ETFs that you would use for these indices, such as the SPXU for the S&P 500, the SDOW, the SDOW for the Dow, the SQQQ for the NASDAQ Composite, but really what you're playing is the NASDAQ 100, which works because those are the big stock NASDAQ names. You'll notice this has come down to the 50-day line. I would look for a breach tomorrow. But the key was this morning when I blogged and I told premium members, you better start watching out for the short side here. Get your list ready, because I get a sense that we're going to turn, or I had a sense that that was going to happen. And one of my New Year's resolutions is to follow my instincts, because too often do I ignore my instincts now that I've done this for 33 something years like that in a row with no breaks. I have a pretty good sense for things, and basically we're rallying into trendline resistance on the Qs and the S&P 500. Meanwhile, the drivers of the move off the lows, basically in industrial metals and semiconductors and some other areas of the market since October, has been, of course, interest rates. The 10-year yield continues lower. What's interesting is that it moved lower today, but the market got clocked. If we look at the dollar as measured by the Invesco US Dollar Index ETF, it was going up. So that drives the market going down. But could the dollar turn and start to rally? Now, interest rates, that's an interesting situation there, but we'll see how this plays out. All we know for sure is that the index is reversed at trendline resistance. The S&P has busted the 200-day moving average, and a number of shorts have popped up on our screens. And we've already been campaigning some short sale ideas over the past three reports, but I think some of that gathered momentum today. Meanwhile, the strong areas of the market have been precious metals, which has been a driver for gold miners, but that's starting to roll over on the GLD. Interestingly, gold futures are only down $4.70 as I see them after hours right now. So not much of a pullback yet, but you could see more of a pullback, and of course that would drag the precious metals names down. Now, the other area of the market that we've been playing to great profitability over the last 2 weeks has been industrial metals, specifically aluminums and coppers, okay? And those have had big moves. So Alcoa has been one, has reported earnings after the bell as I speak, trading down a couple of bucks. So if this busts the 200-day moving average tomorrow, it's a short. But notice what it did today, a big outside reversal on big volume. And probably some of that volume may be coming in from after hours, but still it reversed pretty handily in an outside reversal to the downside today. But what's been driving the moves in aluminums and coppers, obviously in the same way that gold miners have been driven by higher prices in gold, we've seen higher prices in the aluminum commodity itself. So the Barclays Bank Bloomberg Aluminum Subindex Trust ETF, that's a mouthful, JJU, that's an easier way to say it, has been rallying just like these aluminum stocks. And so has copper, just like the copper stocks, which include several names. But those have been the drivers of the areas that we've been interested in, and they may have run their course. So we can see that mining stocks, which have done well for us over the last couple of months or so, and some better than others in the past 2 weeks, are pulling in. You have Agnico Eagle Mines. Looks pretty well controlled here, holding above the 20-day line. But if it busted the 20, I would have no issue shorting it. Okay, if we look at Anglo Gold Ashanti, you had a heavier volume yesterday on the selling, and then today you're down again. It's holding the 10-day line. Barrick Gold is busting the 10 down to the 20. Buenaventura Mines is looking like it's wobbling after a failed breakout. That would have been last Friday. And you're reversing today along the 10 and the 20. So some of these are starting to look like shorts. If we go around, First Majestic has busted several moving averages coming down. So that's been a short coming through those moving averages. Goldfields is holding up very well, but this is going to come in. It looks to me like you'd want to see what it looks like when it hits the 20-day line here, the 20-day exponential moving average here, or the 50-day moving average here. Okay, so those would be your main reference points. Anglo Gold Ashanti, which I think is another good miner. You got the 20-day line, and at worst, the 50-day line down there. So you want to mark those on your alerts and be ready to roll with them if, in fact, we start to come down, which it looks like we're going to. So I think you just want to be ready with the pullback points, which I think at this point could be a fair ways down from here, the 20-day at least, and the 50-day moving average possibly as well. And in some rare cases, maybe the 200-day moving average. If we look at industrial metals, the ones that have done really well for us are Alcoa, which as I pointed out, reported earnings after the close, and you've got a big outside reversal. It's down a couple of bucks after hours as I speak, and this is coming in to the 200-day moving average. So what you want to watch for tomorrow is if it busts the 200-day moving average, it could flip to the short side and become a short target, where the bust through the 200-day line would trigger a short entry. The other one that we've been playing, and these have all had fantastic moves since I think the first or second day of the year that I blogged about them, and they were very tight in here, and then boom, they took off. But notice even Century Aluminum is reversing today, and chances are it's going to be trading lower tomorrow with Alcoa if this breakdown plays out. Look, notice how CMC had a great move. We caught that pretty well because the buy point was here 7 days ago. Now you're reversing. This could flip back to the short side as a short sale target if it busts the 10 and the 20. Freeport-McMoRan has also been shooting higher, and as I pointed out, the move in the aluminums and the coppers has been based on the moves to the upside in aluminum and copper commodities, just like it's been the case with the gold miners moving higher because prices of gold have been going higher, or gold prices have been going higher. But here, Freeport has a big outside reversal here on heavy volume. Doesn't look very good. So these are looking fairly bearish. If we look at some of the metals now, you are starting to get these potential double top setups, and you actually got a trigger here through this high at 154.98 in Nucor today. So that would have been a short sale entry using that as your covering guide, okay? So basically there's the top right there, boom, it comes below it today, and you're shorting it as it comes down. So this might have been one on your list of short sale targets. Reliance Steel was another one. I think I've talked about this in recent video reports for those of you who don't get the video reports. Steel Dynamics, same thing. So all of these have double top. And let's throw in US Steel, which is probably next. So once it breaks this low, or I'm sorry, this left side peak here at 27.64, it would trigger a short sale entry. So these are the names that have been acting very strong recently, and more recently since the start of the year, we've made some decent money in industrial metals like the coppers and the aluminums and the gold miners, and you have names like US Steel and Steel Dynamics and commercial metals. Those have all been rallying. They may start to double top or break moving average resistance or support, at which point they're shorts. Okay, so watch this. This could flip out the same way Steel Dynamics, Nucor, and Reliance Steel have if it breaks below this left side peak at 27.64. So we closed today at 27.84. You're 20 cents above that. So it comes down through it. That's a short sale entry trigger. We can also look at the uraniums, which I covered in my last report. Camco busting the 200-day moving average on volume that was 14.5% above average. Not necessarily heavy, but that does trigger a short sale entry at the 20-day line. I think I would have liked to have been in there earlier today, though, using the 620 chart if I was stalking it. The other ones in the group would be Energy Fuels, which triggered a short sale entry at the 200-day moving average if you saw it. If it was on your short list or your playlist, I should say, of short ideas that you had in your back pocket. And this morning I blogged to premium members You want to have your short sale list out because you're probably going to need it today. And sure enough, you did. And so this was one area to look at. So, I mean, if I look around and say the lithiums are all rolling over, you know, and you see that Lithium America's busting the 20-day line here. You see Livent pushing up towards the 50-day. I would not be surprised if that is closer to the 10-week on the moving on the weekly chart rather. 10-week moving average on the weekly chart. Sigma Lithium, that looks like it could potentially flip out at the 50-day line. It did push above it today, but if it reverses back through it, then that may become a short sale entry. So that's basically what I'm looking at in the metals, and you'll see that the ones that have done well over the past couple of weeks now suddenly start to look like shorts, which makes complete sense given the suddenly shifting general market environment. Another area of the market that has been moving to the upside to start the new year off has been semiconductors. And so I have said before in recent reports that I am using an ETF strategy where I'm going to use a SOXL, the Direxion 3x Bull Semiconductor ETF or Semiconductor Bull ETF, SOXL. And on the other side, the SOXS, depending on how these names play out, because they tend to move together, right? They're like just a wolf pack. So when they're all moving, when one of them is moving, they're probably all moving together. And so if they all roll over, they're all going to likely roll over together. And the easy way to play that is using the ETFs, the SOXS and the SOXL. So today we can see that if we use the SOX, for example, we can see that you're double topping out. And I talked about this yesterday in a blog post that this is where you are at with the ETS and the group as a whole, as we'll see in a second here. But this means you can start to stock the SOXS. And today we got that nice reversal, as I showed you in the written part of the report today, with the SOXS being one of the ETFs that I was playing as a long play on the short side of semiconductors. So if we go through the group, we can see that AMD looks like it could be rolling over, but you'll notice you got this little bit of a double top thing going on. Analog Devices just breaking the 10-day and the 20-day, so that triggers short sale entries right there. AMAT looks like it's in double top land, just like the SOX. You see Broadcom breaking the 10-day line. Intel breaking down through the 10-day line and down into the 50-day line. KLA 10 core in double top land. So you have this left side peak here at 419.57. Today you got to a high of 428.28, and then you reverse to close at 414.77. So that would put you about 1% below the left side peak here. That's a short sale entry using this left side peak here at 419.57 as a covering guide. Okay. Now remember, when I say covering guide, I don't mean you necessarily have to use the moving average or the price point as a covering guide. You could add 1 to 3% on the upside to allow for porosity. When I'm trading, I usually use very concentrated positions, so I'm tending to work around that and not trying to be too heavy if it turns against me, but being ready to come in heavy if it breaks the particular price point, price level, or moving average with some authority later on. So I may be working that several times before it finally breaks. You look at Lam Research, a little double toppy. Lumentum running into resistance at the 65-day exponential. And I know I've never shown this before in the reports, or rarely the written reports, but I do use a 65-day exponential moving average as another moving average on my daily charts on HGS Investor Software, which is my weapon of choice when it comes to analyzing stocks in the market. In my view, there really isn't anything like it. Marvell may be ready to fail at the 50-day line. Microchip may be ready to fail at the 10 and the 20 and the 50. So watch these. If they break those moving average support levels, then they may trigger shorts. But if they all do it at the same time, then you can just be long the SOXS. Okay, so I want to point that out as a strategy that you can use rather than going after individual names, because that will open you up to potential news risk or headline risk with an individual name, as opposed to dealing with the whole group. But that's basically the semiconductors. And let's take a look at this ETF strategy very quickly when it comes to the semiconductor group. So for my quotes, I use eSignal, which I think is an outstanding service. Check it out at esignal.com. I use this and I create group lists. So I have this set up for the SOXS, SOXL, and TechS, TechL pairs that I have been playing. And what they show you is up here I have the TechS and the TechL right here. which you can see hopefully. And below here are 10 names that are the top 10 components in those ETFs. And you're going to notice something here, and that is that you have Visa, you have MasterCard, you have Accenture, and you have a variety of other techs besides just NASDAQ 100 type techs. But MasterCard and Visa are in this Tech S, Tech L pair. And so they give you a little different spin on versus doing the SQQQ, okay? So during the day, I have this screen up and I'm watching things in real time, and I'm scrolling through these names to see where they might be reversing. So you can see Accenture reverses at the 200-day line. So I can see that. I see Visa is failing at this double top left side peak here, right? And if it busts the 10-day line, that would trigger a short sale entry there. And Texas Instruments is busting the 10-day line, but notice how it reversed at double top resistance or prior highs up here on the left side over the past few days, okay? So it was already weakening up there at resistance. Avago reversing at the 10-day line. Apple's been rallying, but notice how it reversed near the 50-day line. MasterCard is breaking the 10-day line, but also starting to reverse below or back through this left side peak here, okay? So you can watch that because that could trigger a double top short sale entry. Cisco is hanging out, or was hanging out above the 10 and the 20. Today, it triggered a short sale entry at the 10 and the 20 and also the 50. So you can see that pretty clearly, right? And so you can see how I'm watching these names and I'm watching these stocks trade. And I know these are the top 10 components for the Tech S and the Tech L, right? And so I will come after those on the short side or the long side, depending on how the underlying components are acting. So you see Microsoft, what happens here? It reverses at the 50-day moving average. Let me see if I can make this bigger for you. It doesn't seem to want to cooperate. Abracadabra, there we go. Okay, so you can see this reverse at the 50-day moving average. And so all I need to do is play the Tech S. Bingo. And it had a nice move today, as I showed you earlier on the written portion of this report, and it's hanging up near the highs after hours, so maybe it gaps up tomorrow. Same thing goes for the SOX L and the SOX S, depending on how these semiconductors. So I've got now this is what's interesting about the SOX L and the SOX S. I've got the top 8 stock components. What's interesting is that this also has like 25%, not quite 25%, is in a semiconductor index swap. Okay? And the other 25% is in a money market fund. So go figure. But in any case, I will monitor these top 8 names. And you can see NVIDIA in a double top position, as I showed you. It's also in the Tech S, Tech L. AMD in that little double top thing. Intel rolling over. Texas Instruments, you already saw that was rolling over. Broadcom starting to roll over today. Qualcomm looks like it's reversing in here, but you haven't quite made it up to this left side area of price resistance, which is about at 128 or so. Analog devices triggering a short at the 10 and the 20. So you can see how these all reversed, and you got the Tech S and the SOX S today worked pretty well, and that's how I track them. Now you might do something with the FAZ, and so then what you would want to do is let me just set this up, which is the FAS and FAZ. Okay, so the FAS on the long side, the FAZ on the short side. So if we just go through off the top of my head, I'm trying to remember all the big banks. Let's see if I can remember them all. I'll throw in Schwab too. It's very bank-like these days. But that gives you a pretty good idea what's going on with these major components of the XLF, which in turn are the major components of the FAS and the FAZ. But you see Citigroup, very clear double top today. So that triggered a short sale entry at this left side peak, which is right around 50, 58, something like that, and then it just headed back to the downside as volume was above average. You look at Bank of America, and this is also breaking down. It started to break down yesterday when it dropped below the 50-day and the 200-day moving average. So this is another way, another area of the market that you can play that looks pretty weak to me. And as somebody on my Twitter page pointed out today, I've been saying in my reports for quite a while that the low PEs in the banks and the big stock financials makes me nervous because it's telling you something. Maybe we're seeing it. Wells Fargo flips out at the 50 and the 200-day moving average today. It's a short there. So if you saw all this going on with these names, JP Morgan busting the 10-day line, you could have gone long the FAZ and you would have seen it turn as these all started to break down. Goldman Sachs flip out at the 50-day line yesterday after earnings. That's what killed the Dow while everything else was hanging in there. But eventually that divergence made itself felt today. Goldman again a short as it rallied into the 20-day line earlier today and then rolled lower. U.S. Bank busting the 200-day line. So if you're watching these and you want to play the FAS-FAZ combo or pair, then that was pretty simple. And all you really had to be watching was a 620 chart of the FAZ. Okay, and you see the turn. And I showed you guys this on my blog page this morning, just as it was turning. Amazing, isn't it? But to me, it was kind of obvious we're getting a little bit long in the tooth here. I've made some pretty good money. I think I've had my best 2 weeks of any year to start the year out in my career. So, I don't know if that means anything. Usually if I talk about it, though, it's bad luck, so I'm not going to say anything else. But it's been a good 2 weeks playing some of the industrial metals names, the coppers, the aluminums, the golds, the precious metals, and maybe a couple others, semiconductor here or there, the SOXL, because that's actually worked out pretty well on the upside for the last couple of weeks, as you can see here. But finally today we ran out of gas. So that's really where I'm focusing my energies and trying to keep it simple. So some of these industrial metals, as I showed you, if they roll over from here and start breaking moving average support, some already have, they become shortable as close to those moving averages as possible. If you don't want to use individual stocks, and you can monitor the underlying components of these various leverage, 3 times leverage ETFs, right? The Tech S, Tech L, which is Direction, I don't know how you pronounce it, Direction, Technology Bear 3X, and Technology Bull 3X. You got the SOXL, which is the Semiconductor Bull 3X, and the SOX S Semiconductor Bear 3X. And you got the FAS, which is the Direction Daily Financial Bull 3X and the Daily Financial Bear 3X in the FAZ. So that's a very simple ETF strategy, and I find that it works in markets that are very confusing and also where you might want to limit individual stock headline risk by going after a group since, and this is a major factor in this market because it's one of the major characteristics, you tend to see groups move very closely together. So why short one when you can short them all? So the same strategy can apply to playing the SQQQ TQQQ pair. So these are the big names in the NASDAQ 100. So I will monitor these. Qualcomm, for example, reversing. Netflix, double top reversal. Notice how 3 days ago, that would have been last Friday, it got above this left side peak and closed just below it. So that triggered a double top short sale entry. Okay, and it's now heading lower. Google reversing at the 50-day line. Apple reversing near the 50-day line. Amazon, which has been running lately, starting to reverse at double top resistance here along this left side peak. Let me get a black pen. A little easier to see on a white chart, but you can see that. You get a double top reversal there. That's a short sale entry. You look at Booking.com, and travel names have been doing pretty well. They've been going straight up. I'm not sure why, but they are. But today, Booking finally reversed. Meta, which is the former Facebook, running for the last couple weeks, but now it may reverse at the 50-day line. I'm sorry, the 10-day line. Nvidia in a double top position. Microsoft running into resistance at the 50. Tesla running into resistance and reversing along the 20-day line. And Oracle. Well, maybe it's going to trigger, well, you broke below the 10-day line today, maybe it'll trigger a double top short sale entry along this high at around 85, 60, 70, somewhere in there. Cisco, we already showed you that, and Intel. So you can use the TQQQ, SQQQ pair, right? And the easy way to do that is to short the group by going long the ETF this morning when it triggered a long entry signal right here when the MACD crossed. So we've looked at some pretty good areas of the market that I think we can focus on the short side if the market heads lower from here. And hopefully the ETF strategy works for some of you. I find it to be much simpler, and also I can get immediate leverage very quickly in these things. Other areas of market have been rallying, like travel names, so I just wanted to cycle through some groups very quickly. But we can see today some of these actually, well, all of them pretty much reversed. Notice Avis Budget Group short at the 50-day line, so there's one for your list. Carnival is short at the 200-day line, so there's another one for your list. Hawaiian Airlines busted the 50-day line. Probably too late to short it now. It's extended on the downside. Hilton maybe busts the 50-day line. I've got Lyft in here. Marriott, little double toppy. So there's some things in here that could potentially become shortable, and some were actually today, depending on how the market plays out. If we look at telecoms, I'd like some of these names, but you know, I'll play them either way. Arista flipped out at the 200-day line. It was actually ran into resistance at the 20-day line, you can see here, and broke below the 200-day line, so that triggered a short sale entry. Sienna could trigger a short sale entry at the 10-day line, so there's another one for your list. Extreme Networks, same thing, but you also have the 20-day and the 50 in there, so that's another one for your list. F5, whoa, it went too fast. Reverse it, all the moving averages, so that's extended. Fabrinet, maybe this one fails. It's a little bit on the double top side here, breaking back below this high at 136.08, so that triggers a double top short sale entry. Keep in mind, though, this is a thin stock. It trades 189,000 shares a day, so very thin. I don't really care much for it. Juniper, look at that. Boy, that's pretty ugly. Nice big fat reversal near double top resistance here at this peak from 2 weeks ago. Now, if you bust these moving averages, you're going to trigger more short sale entries. So those are moving today. Other areas of the market that might be of interest, agricultural, and I'll close out with this, but Agco, big outside reversal. If it busts the 10-day line, that triggers a short sale entry. Bungie, I was looking at this as a possible short over the weekend in my weekend report, and notice how you triggered a short today at the 200, the 50, and the 20-day, and I believe you're either right at or right below the 10-day line. Let's take a quick look at that. You're right at it, actually. So that's potentially short there, but you had to be on that. And I did talk about it in my weekend report. CF Industries is short at the 20-day line. Corteva talked about this in the weekend report. So that was a very clear short yesterday and today at the 50-day line. So that one was pretty easy. Deere & Company, notice how it's now broken down. So it triggered a short at the 10-day and the 20-day. Mosaic triggering a short at the 50-day line. That's a fertilizer name. Nutrien triggered a short at the 65-day. It's holding above the 50-day, and it could turn into a short at that point. Also, we want to look at CAT, and it's possible that CAT could fail as a breakout. So if you start seeing it bust the 10-day and the 20-day, instead of holding support at the line as it has, then I think you could come after it on the short side. Last but not least, let's look at the solars. And this group has been on fire over the last couple of weeks, but notice how Array Technologies, as I pointed out in the weekend report, could play out as a double top along this left side peak here at 24.24, and sure enough, that's exactly what it did today. Canadian Solar starting to roll over. I'm going to leave that one alone. Enphase, a short at the 20-day line. If it breaks the 200-day, then that triggers a fresh short sale entry. Keep an eye on First Solar. It's actually holding up. But if it drops below these highs, and I guess the highest high here is 173.68, then that would trigger a double top short sale entry from here. I think Solar Edge, potentially the same thing, but there's really no reference points other than this peak here. So you could theoretically use that as a double top short sale entry. That's 323.57. And it breaks back down below it, so that could be used that way, using this 323.57 peak as a covering guide. SunPower, just a short at the 20-day line. Sunrun probably is going to break below the 50-day line. Watch for that, because that will trigger a short sale entry using the 50-day line as your covering guide. So anyways, that's it for now. If you're a premium member, you have any questions about this report, then feel free to ask them on the blog comments page. But that's it for now on the video side. And on the weekend, if you like this format, let me know. I may stick with it during the week, because it allows me to cover more ground much more quickly, and also to produce the content a lot more quickly so I can get it out to you a lot faster, which I think is really what it's all about.